the stage my friend and colleague, Director of Product for Adobe ColdFusion, Ayyappan.
Good morning, folks, and welcome to the 10th edition of our summit. I know we had a 2-year break, pandemic enforced, but it's great to see you folks back and work with you in person. So a quick note about myself. I'm Ayyappan, I'm Director of Products. I've been involved with ColdFusion for close to 6 years now. So though I've been working from the sidelines, overseeing things like sales, support, product management. Most of you probably know Rakshit, who used to be our PM. Rakshit was part of my team, and our pivot to the cloud was something that we were both passionate about and something that we continue to build on. So that's a quick bit about me. With that, let's quickly dive in to start with thank our sponsors, who are also our longtime partners. And these include Coalesce Solutions, Autos Solutions, Foundio, Media3, Fusion Reactor, Carahsoft, and Hostic. That continued support is really what drives us to do better and better at the summit year on year. And so I'll break this in 2 parts. I'll give a quick overview of who is here and the business overview on CF and how CF is doing. And then I'll come on back later to talk to you about the roadmap for CF and where we're taking it, right? So to start off with, providing some context on who's here. So we have about 350 plus attendees at the summit this year, representing about 200 plus companies. These are made up of 60% of these are active CF developers, and about 40% of you are managers and decision makers in these organizations. We also have a mix of CF engineers, designers, and leadership. And I believe in these 2-3 days that we are here together, the interactions that we have between us will really influence the roadmap for CF. So let's work on that. So starting with the business overview, how is CF doing? So CF, I'm super proud to say, continues to be a key part of the tech stack in the leading Fortune 100 companies, 73% of them, and in 64% of our Fortune 500 companies. So this is a big thing for a product that's now going to be 27 years, right? And we continue to be relevant. And Adobe's plan is to continue to lean in on the key things that really make these enterprises use CF. So those being continuing to further performance, productivity, and security. So we continue to drive that, and that's really what we will build on for the future too. So beyond the enterprises, what's happening, right? So are we doing anything beyond the folks who have been using us for some time? So this actually shows you a good sense on the number of leads, which can be a good indicator of the leading interest in CF, right? So you can see that the leads have been increasing over the last 5 years, and these leads are generated from CF downloads online and the people who attend our webinars. Now, this does not account for the 100,000 plus CF downloads that have happened on Docker Hub since we went live last year. So this number is even higher, right? So that shows also, the adoption of our cloud strategy that's taking place. The other thing that I'd like to discuss is, and the question that we get asked is, how interesting is CF for Adobe? Now, one of the success criteria for any commercial technology is its revenue numbers, right? And we've strongly increased our CF revenue numbers from 2014 onwards. And this continues to be a huge motivator for Adobe to invest in CF. And we've only seen this grow. So a quick breakdown on where these revenue numbers are coming from. So last year we grew 20% year on year. And the big growth, so if you look at it, it comes from retaining our existing customers. 95% of our customers we've been able to retain and grow that existing customers' average deal size by 10%. So more and more investments there. But besides that, last year, 22% of the accounts last year were net new. So there is a huge net new uptake for ColdFusion 2. With this, we want to talk about what is Adobe's commitment to CF, right? Adobe is committed to modernizing CF and keeping it relevant for today's app development environments. We recognize the transition to the cloud and the need to support microservices. We chalked out a multi-cycle strategy to achieve this, and CF21 was part one of that, right? And we will continue to build on that, and I'll talk about what we have in store for building on that story. So our engineering team, part of whom are here, just working on the next release, and as I cover some of these pieces, post this, I would also encourage you to go to the Adobe booth and try out some of the features that we've built out. Now, before I get into this in detail, first let's hear from our speakers on how they are using ColdFusion today. So I want to take a moment to call out the speakers we'll be hearing from, starting with Mario Rodriguez, founder and CEO of WebAuthor, Urmil Mehta, Director of Cloud Operations at Basware, Brian Sape and Jim Ani. Brian is a VP of Software Development at Gorilla RF, and Jim heads marketing. So these three speakers, these three companies are going to be coming up here for a very good reason, right? So they're all CF customers who've truly been leaning into the power of the language and the ecosystem CF provides to drive productivity, scalability, and performance. And perhaps we should hear from them first. So please give a warm CF Summit welcome to Mario Rodriguez, founder and CEO of WebAuthor.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to talk a bit today about a recent project we've done with an organization in Miami-Dade County. And so I'll bring up some stats here. I don't know if you know, but 80% of a child's brain is formed before their third birthday. Yet, over 40% of children entering kindergarten in Florida are not prepared to learn. And so why is that important to us, right? Because, a lot of times when we build projects and we work on things, we don't really get to see the impact of what our technology provides. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So who we are. We've been around since 1995, started with CF 1.5, and very happy to say that we have not wavered. We have been with CF from the beginning. And so we're continuing to be very happy with it. About 10 years ago, we went entirely to the AWS cloud. And so today, we're working mostly with a lot of nonprofits in the state of Florida and some other states as well. And we have our technology built just around that. It's built on CF. We've increased our usage with CF, but we're also increased our customer base in a great way. And today, the project that we're going to talk about is built off of we came up with a way that said all of our projects had a lot of things in common about how do we collect data, and then what do we want to do with that data. So in this case, we'll talk a little bit about the book club. And so we came up with this Flex framework for how can we automate the majority of things that we were doing and using ColdFusion and its tools to benefit that. Today, we actually have our customers even writing CF code, even though they don't know it is CF, in ways that they can extend the platform for their own use. So it is a fully managed solution. We're hosting it entirely in AWS, and because of that, we feel that we have near unlimited scale from a resource standpoint and the benefits of the microservices with Lambda and S3 and so on. So what happens today when we collect data, right? We have a lot of things, and we're able to benefit, from the folks in the audience, the community that has been contributing to CF for so many years. Ray and Ben and Brian and Brad and Charlie and Pete and so on. I can give all the names. It's funny, I'm mentioning them all by first names like I know them, because we've benefited so much, CF in the CF community from the things that they've put out there for us to share and learn from. And so today, we went from a monolith solution with everything being done in CF to where CF is managing all of the things now interacting with AWS from a Lambda function. Today, when a user registers for the book club, we'll talk about it. We have so many things happen, right? CF kicks off an SQS process to then store the data in S3, so we have version control for every record that we store in our database. We then also have use Elasticsearch, for having a full text indexing, and then we have triggers and dynamic functions that are automatically built to notify groups or to have other API calls happen automatically. Now, how does this help with what we want to talk about today? This project that we've worked with the Children's Trust, they're an organization in Miami-Dade County, and they had a vision 10 years ago about having a book club for children. At the time, it was only for 3-year-olds. And they, it was working well for some parts, but they wanted to expand it and really be able to have, they had a vision of saying, we want to send a free book to every child from birth to 5 years old each month. And to be able to do that based on language, based on, as they're aging up and aging out of the system, and how do we keep track of all of that? And so today, we're reaching almost 1 million books shipped to children for free in Miami-Dade County. And so how we did that, right, they had a need and said, they came to us and said, how can we make this work? We want to be able to manage it all internally. And so you have one part of it, which is going to be the registration of children, parents wanting to get their children registered. How do you kind of expand that, market it, and then make sure that we're getting them coming in? But then there's also the other side of this where we want to manage the inventory of the books that we need to have. How many should we have, in a few months based on the projections of the registrations coming in by age and language and so on. And so CF has built the entire solution and giving them the opportunity to manage it all in-house. So they no longer needed an external vendor to track registrations or anything else. So a little bit about how we're doing that today. We talked about, with our Flex platform, we always broke it down into 3 things. How do we collect the data? When we collect that data, what do we want to do with it, right? Is where we have dynamic functions and triggers. And then how do we report on that data so that they can make informed decisions? And so the registration plan was, they started from a marketing standpoint, putting ads on buses around the Miami-Dade County. And on that ad, they had a QR code that someone can just scan and fill out a web registration form. They also had a phone number where you could text the word Lear or read. And using Twilio integrated with CF, we're able to take the registration data from parents, whether it's from the web or from the API, in an example here with the Early Learning Coalition, another organization in Miami, so that when parents, pregnant moms came in, they could be registered and then start receiving a book as soon as that child was born. So from the beginning, we collect that data from different sources. We then have a verification process, making sure that their address is in Miami-Dade County, the child age is up to 5 years old, and all of the correspondence and everything else from when we ship the books and getting a file back from the post office to making sure that if there was an invalid address or the person moved, they automatically get a notification to come back and either correct their address or if they moved out of state, out of the county, thanking them for being a part of the program. So all of that is managed in CF. We've been asked the question many years, I'm sure like many of you, as why CF? And I've been proud to say that from 1995 on, the questions have been a lot less since we moved to the cloud. But the answer has always been, well, why not, right? Because CF has yet to fail us in terms of being able to accomplish what we needed to do from a business standpoint with the technology that we have. And so everything here, this is one of my favorite projects here. They've won numerous awards within the government community for this program. And sending out a book each month to children based on their age and their language preference. And so, oftentimes we don't really get to understand what impact we're making in the community. And, maybe for years to come, having children be more prepared as they enter kindergarten to learn and to know that, that we played a small part in it, I think has been a great feeling. And I think, CF makes it so easy for us to be able to do that. And I want to thank the developers I mentioned earlier and the others that have contributed to things online that I've benefited from. If I haven't said thank you, I'm saying thank you now, and appreciate all you do. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mario. What a fantastic presentation. Next up, Urmil, the Director for Cloud Operations at Basware.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Urmil Mehta, and I am a Director of Cloud Operations at Basware. So let me just talk about who we are first. So Basware is a global purchase-to-pay leader. What it does is that it gives you complete visibility on your spend. And so once you have the visibility on your spend, you can reduce the complexity in your system, you can streamline your financial supply chain, and save money. Since pandemic, we all know the supply chain issues. And so our product actually helps making sure that your suppliers are sourcing material correctly and they are following the compliance that you have set for them. So as a part of P2P, the first P stands for purchase. And so we have a product called Purchase Manager, and Basware Purchase Manager uses ColdFusion at the core. And so today I want to discuss about how do we use ColdFusion in our Purchase Manager product. So this is a tech stack that I'm just listing it out here in a very simple way. Few years back, we made a decision that we want to have quite interactive UI that is usable on web application as well as on mobile. So we moved our UI into a separate layer and the business logic on a separate layer. And so since then, our UI is on HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript. And the backend is running on AWS EC2 instances written in ColdFusion. When we started out, we had our infrastructure laid it out in North America and Australia. But since last few years, we have our product deployed in many different regions of AWS environment. We are quite heavy users of AWS services as well. It helps us innovate faster. And so we use many of the AWS services. Some of them just listed here: EC2, ELB, RDS, Elasticsearch, S3, EBS, and so on. So one of the reasons that why we decided to use ColdFusion and what we love most about ColdFusion is this. It's a truly multi-tenant SaaS application. We have all the tenant data going into one RDS instance. And so multiple tenant, single database solution. And so the way ColdFusion helps us is that every tenant will have assigned data source, and that data source will have views that has access to only their data. This is kind of amazing and a very simple way of working in multi-tenant environment. None of our developer ever needs to worry about it when they're writing queries that they need to filter it by the tenant that they're working on. So the risk of tenant mix match or data bleeding from one tenant to another tenant is almost impassable by using a solution like this. And so we really enjoy using ColdFusion technology to make sure that it helps us grow faster and do rapid development. This is a small snippet from entire of our AWS architecture and how we use ColdFusion with it. So if you just look at it, users or single sign-ons comes through Amazon Route 53, goes to the ELB, and then underneath the ELB we have a scalable solution that uses ColdFusion. So as demand grows, we will have a cluster where the CF servers will come into play. We have scheduling servers that does all the dirty laundry, and then all of them connect to the RDS instance, which is highly scalable, multi-AZ in AWS world, and so it just works for us. We store many documents in S3 and EBS, and so since ColdFusion coming up with newer features, it really helps us to accelerate our growth. Just to give out some stats on how ColdFusion server works for us, it helps serve almost 800,000 logins a month, almost 50 million API calls, and the response time is less than 5 milliseconds, which is quite critical for a system like P2P. And our availability is 99.997, and that's all due to the way the code is written in ColdFusion. One reason that I could say that I personally love ColdFusion, because I'm responsible for many product and services, and one of them is written in ColdFusion. And what I have seen is, I'm sure all of you guys agree, that it's easier to learn and you can do rapid development. We haven't done any case study in Basware itself, but I can easily say that work done on ColdFusion in this specific product saves almost 30%, or is at least 30% more effective than other services that I'm responsible for. We've been using ColdFusion since Macromedia days, so many years. So we have customized ColdFusion engine to our needs, and it serves its purpose. And as I said, that we are using AWS services, Amazon services, quite heavily. And so the features that comes out on ColdFusion that helps us directly connect with Amazon works really well. And it helps us accelerate the growth. And that is all I have. If you have more questions about how we use ColdFusion in the detail, then please reach out to me after party, or after the sessions are over, or you can connect me over LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you, Urmal. The work you and your company are doing to promote literacy, I think this is true. But thanks for walking us through this great overview of the work that you're doing. And up next, Brian Sappe and Jim Ani from Gorilla RF.
Sounds good, Brian.
Good. All right. Good morning, everyone. So again, my name is Jim Monning. I'm the VP of Marketing at Gorilla Ref. I also manage the 5G product line for infrastructure as well as for automotive. And next to me is Brian Sepe. He's our VP of Software Development. Now, in today's discussion, Brian will be carrying basically the bulk of the interesting material related to ColdFusion. My role here is simply to help paint a picture of Gorilla Ref as a company, and then to show and to lead in to how we had a dire need for an innovative platform like ColdFusion. So let's get started. Let's talk about who we are and what we do. Very good. So in a nutshell, Gorilla Ref, we're a chip manufacturer. We're based in North Carolina. And we manufacture very specialized ICs, or integrated circuits. These are focused on very high-end, high-performance RF and microwave applications. And it basically forms the backbone, or helps to promote the backbone for wireless networks. And these are networks that you probably deal with on a daily basis, whether it's cellular networks, whether it's connectivity within your car. The list goes on, especially as you move into the IoT realm. And so what I want to do here is just to show how our connected viewpoint on things ties in, if you will, to this world that has an insatiable need for connectivity. In terms of products that we sell into, so the first of which, again, is automotive. And this is one of the product lines that I help manage. Now, all of you probably recognize the shark fin antenna on the different cars. You can't quite see with the pointer here, but firstly, all the new cars that are rolling off the production lines today have the shark fin antenna pre-installed on them. And if you decap that antenna, underneath you'll see a series of different antennas, basically different wireless protocols that are supported. And so we, in turn, help to support the signal, basically to condition that signal as it's brought in from either a satellite or from a terrestrial tower and bring it into the cabin. So one of those applications includes GPS. We make a number of low-noise amplifiers that fit into very high-end GPS systems for navigation, obviously. We also sell into front-end modules that fit into Sirius XM radios. So again, our components are located within that shark fin, and they help to condition that signal as it's moved into the radio console on your dash. There's a new standard coming out now too. It's called V2X. The X stands for everything, so it's vehicle to everything imaginable. And essentially, this standard gives your car a voice. It allows it to talk to other vehicles on the road, to infrastructure like street signs and stoplights and so forth, and even pedestrians that might be lurking around the corner. And this particular standard is instrumental for autonomous driving. So again, we make components that fit into the wireless portion of this particular standard. Last but not least, we're also found in cellular compensators, or compensators as our European counterparts like to call it. And what we do here is we help to compensate or to enhance the signal as it's brought in from outside the cabin to inside where obviously the people are, right? So you get better connectivity in cabin where oftentimes some of the signal can be degraded. So again, this is just one of the markets that we sell into. There are other things that you probably deal with on a daily basis, even today, like for instance, the wireless mics that Brian and I are using. We sell into that, if I get this to advance properly. We also sell into industrial navigation, mission critical wireless communications for military applications, and then also into 5G infrastructure. These are the cell towers that you see on the side of the road or on the sides of buildings. So we make power amplifiers, low-noise amplifiers, gain blocks, you name it. All these high-end components fit into those base stations as well. So again, this is who we are, who we sell to. Now, you're probably asking, how does this tie into ColdFusion? So for me, from a marketing perspective, there were three dire needs that we had. The first of which was this need for speed. I had this pending deadline for a trade show that I'll talk about in the next slide that was fast approaching. And basically the platform that we had at our disposal at the time just wasn't getting it done. And we had this forcing function coming fast upon us, and so I needed ColdFusion and basically Brian's implementation of ColdFusion to meet that particular deadline. Secondly, we had to do it on a very, very lean staff. So I needed ColdFusion's force multiplication, if you will. And we'll talk about that more in a few moments. Finally, the last part is customization. So this website that we were developing had to resonate with a very diverse audience. The original implementations of the site that we had were really catering from engineer to engineer. It was designed by engineers and tailored specifically for engineers. However, as we grew up from a small company to a company that was moving to the public domain, we needed to be able to resonate with people like the press, with procurement engineers. We ought to resonate with potential suitors and people that would want to invest in the company. And so we needed something that was available that would allow us to pivot and to basically develop custom pages and to do so in a very short amount of time. We also had a need for specific tools, which I'll talk about momentarily. Okay, let's dig into these a little bit more detail. First one is dire need for speed. So I mentioned before we had this pending deadline. Basically gave the guys 2 months. You're probably looking at it like that's pretty realistic, but Brian and his team were able to rise to the occasion, and again, they turned to ColdFusion for this quick turn. So I had this critical trade show. This is the first one we had coming out of the pandemic. It was both an in-person event as well as a virtual event. And basically, our storefront, the way we wanted to pitch ourselves to customers was our website, our homepage in particular. And so we had to get these changes up and running in a very, very short amount of time. The second part of this is that we had a rebranding effort going on. We had just recently implemented a brand new logo, slightly different color schemes, and basically a new look and feel for the company. And so we had to get that propagated through to the website itself. Along with that, as I mentioned before, we're trying to make this pitch to investors. At the time, we were still a privately held company, and we were in the midst of moving towards a publicly traded firm via an APO. And so we had to make sure that this website was up and running to be able to basically answer questions for possible visitors to GrillRF. Finally, I had to enhance the perceptions. As I mentioned before, the original website was a site basically developed for engineers only. And the perceptions that we had was that it was very good at addressing people that wanted to search for particular products, but it really didn't tell a story of who we were as a company. And again, we're trying to bring in new investment. We had to definitely pivot and to make that site basically resonate with a very, very different audience. So this is the basic need that I had in the marketing front. So I went back to the IT team with this long list of requirements, and they in turn had to look for a new platform with certain benefits and features. And Brian's going to walk you through each of those.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And to his point, we didn't have a very large team or a lengthy timeline to meet these initial needs. We did grow up quite a bit. So the first iteration of the site, for a lot of what we were using, it was actually a concrete CMS system. It's a PHP platform. The next iteration it came in, it was built on Lucy. And I might hear some groans on this one, but we decided to get off Lucy and go to ColdFusion. I know that's the polar opposite of what you read more about, with the other direction, but there's a lot of reason for that. And that ColdFusion site took a total of 7 weeks with a very, very small team. And we'll go over to just a minute into that. But it was a process of getting away and evolving into something that was more enterprise. And from Jim's perspective, especially being a hardware company with introducing software, CMSs were really the natural driving force of how a lot of the web development would initially go, or application development. So we did, yank all stops out at that point and say, hey, we're going custom built, and ColdFusion was the selection. I can hit you with stats all day long, but in just a short period of time, over that 7 weeks, we had 200 site builds, and really less than 5 weeks. And we were able to quickly get that out with flawless, really results. And not only the build process, the development process, but we hit our timelines in a short period of time. So we were able to hit that trade show objective. Yep, and going through quick. And so, as we started to integrate this, one of the things that we knew we needed to do with a lean team, we had to be agile, we had to be nimble, and that's where DevOps came into it. So ColdFusion 2021 was the selection that we went with, and some of the newer enhancements with ColdFusion 2020 really lend its hand to more of that MVP type focus. So we could do these small deliverables and get feedback immediately, keep those feedback loops open with the management staff to make sure that we're going down the right path.
Very good. So I'm flipping back to the marketing need, and this ties directly into Brian and the challenges that he was facing. But our second need was basically needed a way to multiply the small staff that we had. So if you look at the past site that we basically were working with, it was basically taking, from my perspective, forever to get changes implemented. We were trying to put in requests, and the poor staff that we had, given the amount of workload that they were facing, they just simply didn't have the bandwidth to be able to pull this off. And we were down to, 2 developers at the time and a couple of interns.
2 interns.
And so Brian had to look for an alternative with ColdFusion. I'll bring it to you.
Yeah, and one of the points here, we were a small staff, like we said, it was 2 full-time developers, but I want to make, one point very clear. We had 2 interns, and these were 2 interns that had 0 training, 0 experience with ColdFusion. So in some ways, it was nice. There were no preconditioned, feelings or thoughts about ColdFusion or development. So we had a clean slate to start. And within 48 hours, both those interns were pushing code into our production pipelines. And that included in that error-free build process that we had and the deliverables that we met. I've used a multitude of tools, and it's not just ColdFusion at Gorilla. I've used it at several places, and the same consistent results. What we believe was the right selection for the right need. It came out, we were able to hit those timelines and objectives very quickly. And I firmly believe that, some of the things that we're able to do with it was a 5x speed gain from some of the other selections or even the existing CMS platform of Concrete 5. And, one of the phrases that it's mentioned a lot, we like to punch above our weight class. We are small, we're agile, but we're able to do things with a lot of the automation and ColdFusion 2021 native features that I think enables us to do and accomplish what we've done. And, this point right here just reiterates the point of earlier, again, that learning curve, and you've heard it from the other speakers today. 60% of the room has developers in it. I don't need to tell you about the rapid application development capabilities of ColdFusion. You get it, but we've lived it, we continue to live it, and it's always nice to see where it continually works. You're able to get newcomers to the language, quickly trained and developing very fast, efficient, and deployable code that's scalable.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the last need that we had, and that was basically for customization. Now, I mentioned before, we needed this site to resonate with a multitude of customers, right? So I needed customized pages, one that caters specifically to engineering staff, one that perhaps resonated with the procurement engineers, one that talked directly to the press. So that was a critical part of our industry, is being able to promote and to basically to pitch our products to other engineers. And that's one thing that our existing site, or previous site rather, was lacking on. And the last piece of this was to talk about investors and to pitch the company, to basically pitch our value proposition, as well as to give some critical information that would be tied in with our investor relations site. So all these new little spins that we needed, or wrinkles, had to be implemented, again, on a very, very short runway, if you will. The other part of it is the customized programs that we used within the semiconductor industry. So we had access to off-the-shelf ERP and CRM programs, of course, but we found them to be, quite frankly, lacking for what we needed for our specific business. And so when Brian came to us and said, look, I've got this perfect solution for you. I can easily customize these different platforms using ColdFusion. It sounded too good to be true.
Appreciate it. And I know we're running here short on time, but, Jim, I think one of the things that we like to showcase for us is that we introduced ColdFusion into a hardware company. So really looking at how we can solve some of the issues and some of the business needs that Jim had mentioned, using ColdFusion to be able to do that. And again, I'll reiterate the importance of 2021 and how that's played such a key factor in our success with the automation aspects. The smaller JVMs, the package management, the ability to hook into CI and automation and continually deliver time and time again. So much that it's really allowed us to continue to have wins inside the organization, and more trust then evolves in that. Just a quick slide here for anyone that this is an example of our pipeline, our automation process. We're using what I think is the DevOps as the backbone with CI being the backbone of DevOps, but we're utilizing that with ColdFusion 2021 to be able to have these successful deliveries time and time again. And there's one point I want to make, and I'm going to try to go through this here real quick, but coming into a hardware company, that's what we do, right? We're not a software company. We had a clean slate. We had an opportunity to come in and pick anything we wanted to use what our custom ERP, our custom CRM, our website, our applications, everything. And it's an interesting spot to be in because we didn't have a lot of technical debt. And so from my perspective, it was almost a dream come true to be able to come into an organization that didn't have pre-existing conditions. Our CEO, Ryan Pratt, who's in attendance, he's a big believer in software and what it could do. So it was nice to see that a hardware company was willing to invest such a trust and to allow us to actually build these custom platforms. And that's why we're able to use ColdFusion to do that, and that's what we've introduced. One of the interesting things, game theory is getting a lot of play these days, and there's strategies on the finite players, the infinite players, and when we came in, we were thinking long term. This isn't a short term game for us. We see this as an infinite game for Gorilla and where we were going to go. So, we could have easily went down the path of Java. We could have easily looked at a multitude of other languages. And I'm not saying that CF solves every issue. Obviously, we're using DevOps and we're using other tools. But ColdFusion is the foundation for Gorilla RF. And I can stand up here all day and throw stats at you and tell you why ColdFusion's not dead and why it works for us. And I can give you the same examples. But the interesting is 40% of this crowd is made up of managers. You're the decision makers, I'm assuming, on whether or not to continue to use ColdFusion 2021. And I have to think that behind all the stats, all the numbers, what you really need to look at is what game that you're actually playing. In Gorilla RF, we see ourselves as an infinite player in this space. There is no winning development. There is no winning some arbitrary stat that you come up with. What we're trying to do is perpetuate what our business does, perpetuate our software programs, and at the end of the day, the reason why Gorilla, we went with ColdFusion wasn't to win, it was to survive. And we're very happy to be in the Adobe ecosystem. Kudos to the engineers for continuing to deliver good products and the support from the community. We're really happy and we've had a really good success with Adobe ColdFusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Jim. And also, I'd like to thank Mario and Urmal once more for covering their work that they're doing with CF. Now, yes, another round of applause for us. All right, so now let's dive into a little bit of what ColdFusion does today with CF21. And I have to say, Brian has covered that to some extent, provided us a good overview of CF21 and its, the big advantages it has. But the reason I want to do that is because, like I said, our move to the cloud is part one of a multi-part strategy, right? And so CF Fortuna, the next release of CF that we are working on, is building on this strategy. So having some context of what's there in CF21, a quick overview would help. So CF21, I would like to cover that in 4 parts mainly, actually. So one is, a key theme is performance. So out of the box, the CF performance, CF21 over CF 2016 has like a 40% performance enhancement. The other big thing that we did with CF is modularization with CF21, right? So there are two things in that, 2 parts in it. One is we broke down the huge monolithic installer that we had, which was close to 1 gig, and we broke it down to about 150 MB and possibly 100 MB if you bring your own JRE. We've broken it down into like 49 function needs specific packages, and we've provided a code scanner that helps you identify which of those packages you would need to be running for your particular application. So this really makes your whole install process so much more tighter, right? And it helps in just making the whole process quicker. So that's one big thing. The other thing that we've done is CF now supports the CI/CD ecosystem, right? And it helps you achieve 100% end-to-end workflow automation. So really drastically reduce manual errors in that. Our CF language has also many additions to further performance, specifically support for parallel programming in array, struct, and query. The other big thing that we want to cover is security. So security by design is a key principle for CF development. We have a core group of researchers that we work with on the security team at Adobe who are constantly trying to figure out where the vulnerabilities are, and we come out with updates on a quarterly basis or as and when needed to ensure that this is secure. So that continues to be a big part for us on CF. The other one that can possibly fall on both the productivity and security parts is our new support for SSO. This, I really think, allows more people to add SSO to their apps, which otherwise is a much more laborious process, and this obviously makes your apps more secure, so it just promotes that whole thing. Let me move on to our cloud story. So this is the big story for CF. In CF21, we added the ability for CF to access, for you to be able to access really useful cloud services on Azure and AWS using CF code, right? These could be services on NoSQL, Cloud RDBMS systems, and even messaging queries. So all of these were added in CF21, and these are some of the things that our speakers spoke of, right, on how they're using this. The other big update that we rolled out a few months back was the VS Code plugin for CF. This is part of our CF modernization story, where CF Builder, which really was a paid product, we are moving away from that and providing this VS Code plugin as a free offering. And I think this really is a big step towards the direction that we want to go in, where we want to remove the barriers for adoption to CF. We want to make it easy for more and more developers to try out CF, build out your applications in CF, and I think this is one step there. And we will cover some more on how we want to, look at licensing for this in the future, for overall CF in the future. And a big thank you to this community for really for testing out CF Builder, for testing out our VS Code plugin. There are a whole bunch of bugs and ERs that have been filed, and these are in the pipeline. So we plan to continue to build on this, and this will be the most full-featured CF plugin available in the marketplace for this or any other idea. This is, I know an eye chart, but this is the quick overview of how we've been shifting up our game year on year, but sticking to the key themes of productivity, security, and performance. So CF23 continues to build on that theme, and while I can cover a few of the modules that are here, given the time, what I would do is, besides that, I would encourage you, like I said before, to go to the Adobe booth and speak to our engineers there and check out some of the demos on some of the work that we've done. So, to start with the install and update workflow, right? So for the installation process, we've made it easy in post the 2021 release for users to download and install CF through command line from Docker Hub and AWS ECR. So, and you also need to only install the CF packages required. So we are also evaluating for the upcoming release whether we need to support any other popular repositories, and that's that's something that we're going to add on. We're also going to look at how we can potentially split out our security and feature updates, and come out with these updates in a more meaningful, quicker manner. The other big thing is configuration. Now, in the microservices world, managing configurations for each service separately is a tedious and time-consuming process, right? So the central configuration server provides configurations to each microservice connected, so making your whole life easier. Or if you need, let's say, to update 20 servers in one go, what you can do is update one and then clone it to the rest. Or if something isn't right, you just roll it back to where you were. The next big one I want to touch upon is develop. So in this bucket, there are three things I'd like to talk of that we're really bringing to the CF Fortuna release. First one is our HTML to PDF service enhancements. So we are planning to completely revamp this so that it can work with the new CSS engine to provide you pixel perfect HTML to PDF conversion. We are with CF23 also going to start supporting GCP. So we were supporting AWS and Azure. Now we're going to extend that support to GCP. And we believe with this you can really truly write cloud agnostic applications. And we are adding support for GraphQL. With CF23, you'll have the ability for CF to query GraphQL endpoints and never over or under fetch data, right? And it allows you to send those queries in a structure that looks just like the JSON you get back, easing really deployment, development, and architecture design. Finally, let me touch on the logging piece. So central logging, we know that all of you have your own favorite logging tool. So what we're thinking of doing is, instead of trying to reimagine the wheel, next year we'll be releasing a series of logging cookbooks. These are detailed blueprints designed to help you administer quickly and easily incorporate the logging solutions that you already are comfortable with. So that, I know, is a quick overview of what we are doing for Fortuna, but hopefully you can get a lot more about this from the Adobe booth. I want to end with this slide where it gives you a good summary of Adobe's commitment to CF and the CF ecosystem. So as we come out with the CF Fortuna release in H1 of next year, that's when we're slotted, and the planned support that we have for this all the way to 2028. So that's where we are currently, and you know that we continue to add on to this. So with this, I'll end my talk. Thanks, and have a great learning in the rest of the sessions. Thank you, everyone.